In 1933, the United States government confiscated gold from its own citizens and then revalued it 69% higher just 9 months later. In the 1930s, Germany confiscated gold to finance a war machine. In 1966, Great Britain banned gold ownership for 5 years. In the 1960s, France restricted gold repeatedly during currency crises. In 1959, Australia banned gold for 17 years. In 1962, India criminalized gold for 28 years. In the 1930s, Italy requisitioned gold for the war effort. And in the 1940s, Japan confiscated gold before hyperinflation destroyed the yen. 8 different countries, 8 different governments. But they all used the exact same playbook. Every single one followed the same 4-stage pattern. And right now, in the year 2025, all 5 triggers that preceded those 8 historical confiscations are present again. The United States national debt is $36 trillion. The petrodollar agreement ended in June of 2024. Central banks purchased over 1,000 tons of gold in 2023. Military spending exceeds $1.5 trillion. Regional banks are failing. And gold has just spiked 59% in a single year to $4,200 per ounce. Silver has spiked nearly 96%. These are not normal market movements. These are sirens. These are crisis indicators. When precious metals spike simultaneously at this pace, history shows us exactly what comes next: government intervention. However, there is a twist. This time, the government will not confiscate your gold the way they did in 1933. They will not send officers to your door. They do not have to. Instead, they will use 4 modern mechanisms you will not see coming until your wealth is already trapped in the system. They will use central bank digital currencies that can reject gold purchases. They will use capital controls that freeze your bank account. They will use bail-ins that confiscate your deposits. And they will use punitive taxes that make owning gold impossible. The pattern has repeated 8 times in 100 years. The stages are forming again right now. And the price movements are confirming it. This video is the complete dossier on the confiscation pattern. We are going to walk through every major gold and silver confiscation in modern history. We will break down the exact 4-stage pattern that repeats across all cases. We will examine the 5 triggers that always precede government seizure. We will explain why gold at $4,200 is flashing the same warning that appeared before every previous confiscation. And most importantly, we will reveal the specific digital mechanisms governments will use this time to trap your wealth without physically taking your gold. Understanding this is not about predicting the stock market. It is about recognizing a historical cycle that has repeated 8 times in the last century. You cannot escape the pattern because the triggers are already present, the stages are already forming, and the trap is already being built. Before we examine the global cases, you need to understand why governments confiscate gold and silver in the first place. When citizens hold gold and silver, they hold assets that exist outside of government control. Gold cannot be printed by a central bank. Silver cannot be debased by a politician. But when governments face a sovereign debt crisis, they need to print money to survive. And printing money causes inflation. If citizens can flee to gold and silver, they escape the inflation tax. So governments confiscate the metals to eliminate the escape route. They force you to stay in their dying currency. Every confiscation follows 4 distinct stages. First, an economic crisis creates the justification. Second, ownership is criminalized. Third, citizens are forced to sell below market value. And fourth, the government revalues the metal and inflates the currency. 4 stages, 8 countries. The same pattern every time. Let us look at the blueprint. April 5th, 1933. 8 o'clock in the morning. A bank manager in Cleveland, Ohio unlocks the doors and finds a government notice posted overnight. It is Executive Order 6102. It states that all persons are required to deliver all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates to a Federal Reserve Bank by May 1st, 1933. By 9 o'clock in the morning, the phone is ringing off the hook. By noon, a line has formed outside the bank. People are arguing with tellers. They have 26 days. That is how long Americans had to turn in their life savings. The government offered $20.67 per ounce. It was non-negotiable. If you refused, you faced 10 years in federal prison plus a $10,000 fine. Adjusted for inflation, the fine is equivalent to $230,000 today. This was not a request. This was law, enforced with the full power of criminal prosecution. And here's the theft. 9 months later, after Americans had surrendered their gold at $20.67, the government revalued it to $35 per ounce. That is a 69% increase. The government forced citizens to sell at one price, and then immediately declared that the gold was worth 69% more. This was the largest wealth confiscation in American history. But it followed a pattern that would repeat 7 more times around the world. Let us analyze. Stage 1. Economic crisis creates the justification. Gold confiscations never happen during normal times. They happen during a crisis when the government needs an excuse. In 1933, the justification was the banking collapse. 9,000 banks had failed. Unemployment was 25%. The government claimed they needed to confiscate gold to stabilize the system. The truth was that they needed the gold so they could print money without the constraints of the gold standard. Stage 2, criminalize ownership. On April 5th, holding gold became a crime. This turned law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight. Your wealth, which you had legally acquired and saved for decades, was now contraband. Stage 3, forced sale below market value. You walked into a Federal Reserve Bank with real money, gold. You walked out with paper money, a promise from the government. The government paid you $20, but they knew it was worth $35. Stage 4, revaluation and inflation. By revaluing gold to $35, the government essentially increased the money supply by 69% without acquiring a single new ounce of gold. It was monetary expansion by decree. And because Americans could no longer own gold, they could not protect themselves from the massive inflation that followed during the 1940s to finance World War II. This is the mechanism. Seize the asset, revalue it higher, print money against the new valuation, inflate the currency, transfer wealth from the citizens to the state. It happened in America, and it happened everywhere else. Let us move to Germany. After World War I, Germany faced hyperinflation. When the government needed to finance rearmament in the 1930s, they followed the pattern. Stage 1 was the economic depression and the Treaty of Versailles reparations. Stage 2 was the requirement for all citizens to surrender gold. Stage 3 was the surrender at government-set prices that were far below international rates. Stage 4 was the use of that confiscated wealth to finance the war machine. By 1939, the German government had confiscated an estimated 90 tons of gold from private citizens. Those citizens lost everything. Now look at Great Britain. After World War II, Britain was effectively bankrupt. The British pound was losing value rapidly. Stage 1 was a currency defense crisis. Stage 2 was the Exchange Control Act, which banned private ownership of gold bullion. Stage 3 required citizens to sell to the Bank of England. Stage 4 came in 1967, when Britain devalued the pound by 14% overnight. This restriction lasted from 1966 until 1971. If you were a British citizen, you were trapped in a devaluing currency while gold was illegal. When ownership was finally legalized in 1971, gold was $35. By 1980, it was $850. The British public missed a 2,400% increase in wealth because they were locked out of the market. France followed the same 4 stages in the 1960s. Australia banned gold ownership for 17 years, starting in 1959. India criminalized gold for 28 years, starting in 1962. In every single case, the result was the same. The government took the hard assets, and the citizens were left holding paper currency that lost its purchasing power. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a documented historical cycle. It happens when a nation's debt becomes unpayable, and that brings us to today. The pattern repeats because the mathematics force it to repeat. When we analyze these 8 historical cases, we find 5 specific triggers that appear just before the confiscation begins. First, unsustainable government debt. This was present in 7 of the 8 cases. Second, a currency under extreme pressure, present in 7 of 8 cases. Third, capital flight, wealthy citizens moving money out of the country, present in 6 of 8 cases. Fourth, war or massive military spending, present in 5 of 8 cases. Fifth, banking system instability, present in 4 of 8 cases. Now, let us look at the year 2025. All 5 triggers are present. Trigger 1, debt. The U.S. national debt is $36 trillion. That is 129% of GDP. In 1933, the debt-to-GDP ratio was only 40%. Today, it is 3 times worse. The Congressional Budget Office projects $50 trillion in debt by 2034. Interest payments on this debt are now nearly $1 trillion per year. The math is broken. Trigger 2, currency pressure. The petrodollar agreement ended in June 2024. The BRICS nations are building alternative payment systems. Central banks bought over 1,000 tons of gold in 2023 because they are dumping the dollar. The world is losing faith in the global reserve currency. Trigger 3, capital flight. We are seeing record numbers of Americans renouncing citizenship to move assets offshore. Physical gold and silver dealers are reporting inventory shortages because people are trading paper money for metal. The smart money is running for the exit. Trigger 4, military spending. U.S. defense spending is officially $870 billion. But if you include intelligence and veterans benefits, it is over $1.5 trillion. We are funding wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. We are at Cold War levels of spending. Trigger 5, banking instability. In March 2023, we saw Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic Bank fail in a matter of weeks. The commercial real estate market is sitting on a $1.5 trillion time bomb of bad loans. Regional banks are insolvent. 5 triggers. 8 historical precedents. All 5 are flashing red right now, and the market knows it. Gold is trading at $4,200 per ounce. That is a 59% increase in 12 months. Silver is near $64 per ounce, nearly doubling in a year. Historically, a 59% move in 1 year is rare. It signals that the market expects a major currency devaluation or a systemic failure. The market is screaming that the system is breaking. In 1933, the government waited until the price of gold spiked before they confiscated it. They waited until the panic was high enough to justify emergency measures. We are in the spike phase right now. This is the most critical part of this briefing. You must understand that the government will not replicate 1933 exactly. Physical gold is too decentralized. Sending agents to millions of homes is not feasible. Instead, they have built 4 modern mechanisms that achieve the same goal, trapping your wealth, without them ever having to touch a gold bar. Mechanism 1, punitive taxation and reporting. Currently, gold is taxed as a collectible at a 28% capital gains rate. That is already higher than stocks. The government could easily raise this to 50, 70, or even 90%. They can impose an annual wealth tax on gold holdings. They can mandate that every single purchase be reported to the IRS in real time. This does not physically take your gold, but it makes owning it so costly and dangerous that most people will sell. It achieves the same result as confiscation. You are forced out of the asset. Mechanism 2. The central bank digital currency. This is the ultimate trap. A CBDC is programmable money. If the US launches a digital dollar, which is currently in research phase, they gain total control over your spending. Your digital wallet could be programmed to reject transactions for gold or silver. It could automatically apply a 90% surcharge to precious metals dealers. It could flag your account as suspicious, simply for attempting to buy hard assets. China's digital yuan already has these capabilities. The digital euro launches in 2026. Once a CBDC is the only way to move money, the government does not need to seize your gold. They simply turn off your ability to buy it. Mechanism 3. Capital controls. During a currency crisis, governments always lock the doors. We saw this in Cyprus in 2013 and in Greece in 2015. They impose limits on cash withdrawals. They ban international wire transfers. They prohibit the purchase of foreign currencies. If the dollar crashes, you will wake up one morning to find that your money is trapped in the banking system. You will see the price of gold skyrocketing, but you will be unable to access your funds to buy it. You will be locked inside the burning building. Mechanism 4. Bail-ins. Most people know what a bailout is. The government prints money to save a bank. But a bail-in is different. It is now official policy in the US, the EU, and Canada. A bail-in allows a failing bank to take its depositors' money and convert it into bank equity. If your bank fails, they can legally take your savings and give you worthless stock in the bankrupt bank in exchange. This confiscates your wealth before you can even try to convert it to gold. These 4 mechanisms create a digital fence around your wealth. They trap you in paper assets. They make gold ownership impractical. They prevent you from converting your paper wealth into hard assets. And once you are trapped, they will inflate the currency to pay off the $36 trillion in debt. Your purchasing power will vanish, transferred to the state to pay for its mistakes. The timeline is forming right in front of us. From 2025 to 2027, we expect commercial real estate defaults to trigger a wave of regional bank failures. This will give the government the justification to implement capital controls and bail-ins. By 2026 to 2028, the digital euro will launch, and the US will likely follow with its own CBDC pilot programs. Once the digital currency is operational, the trap is set. By 2028 to 2034, the US debt will reach $50 trillion. Interest payments will consume the entire federal budget. The government will face 3 choices: default, austerity, or inflation. History tells us they will choose inflation. And to make inflation work, they must prevent you from escaping into gold. So, what do you do? In every single historical case we analyzed, the people who preserved their wealth did 2 things. First, they recognized the pattern early. They did not wait for the government notice to appear on the bank door. Second, they held physical assets outside of the banking system. In 1933, the citizens who kept their gold in a bank deposit box lost it. The citizens who kept physical gold hidden at home or in private, non-bank vaults survived. They saw their wealth multiply 40 times over by 1980. The people who lost everything were the ones who trusted the government. They were the ones who believed that it couldn't happen here. They were the ones who complied. You have a choice to make. You can ignore the $36 trillion debt. You can ignore the bank failures. You can ignore the fact that gold is up 59% in a year. You can believe that the government has your best interests at heart. Or you can look at the history. 8 countries, 8 confiscations, 4 stages, 5 triggers. They are all present right now. The trap is being built. The exits are being closed. If you are holding all your wealth and paper assets inside the banking system, you're standing in the middle of the road and the truck is coming. The only question is whether you will move before impact. Position yourself before stage 2 begins. Secure physical assets outside of the digital net, because once the restrictions are announced, it will be too late. The window of opportunity is closing, the pattern is repeating. And this time, with digital currency, the trap will be perfect. Do not be the person asking why nobody warned you. This is the warning. Welcome to the pattern. You're inside it right now.